a seat. Church, it's good to be with you this morning. My name is Matt. I'm one of the pastors here, and we get this joy and honor to celebrate some teachers and grads. So let's give it up for the teachers and the grads in the room. Oh, so good. Teachers, you've been here before where you've bribed your students to do something, and I bribed the middle schoolers, and I told them if they brought enough friends, I'd dye my hair pink. So my hair's pink for having 40 students, middle schoolers at youth group a couple weeks ago. So you can bear with me as I endure the shame of that as well. The honor. You know, I've always been fascinated by people who are fascinated with celebrity culture. And I've had these few moments in my life where I've had a claim to fame, where I've had this amazing moments that happened that I'm like, that was incredible. About 10 years ago, I was at church. I showed up on a Sunday morning, and there was these three blonde, perfectly put together, buttoned up, tie kids who showed up to church that morning. And I'm talking to them and interacting with them. At the end of service, I go and grab my youth calendar and I walk over to meet their dad. And he's 6'3", tatted up, and I'm telling him about the youth programs. And I walk away and and somebody's like, that was James Hetfield, the lead singer of Metallica. And I'm like, I met the lead singer of Metallica. And I had no idea, but it was still so cool, right? Or there's this other time where there is a NFL Hall of Famer whose daughter was in my youth program, and so I got to go over to his house and see his Heisman trophy and have a pool party in his pool. And I'm it was so cool. And then he walked up while I was in the pool hanging out with students, and I'm and I had to get out of the pool all wet and meet Ronnie Lott for the first time. That was really fun. My biggest claim to fame is that I was actually on the TV show America's Got Talent. I know you're that was the day that I was there. It was incredible. Okay, I was on the TV show, but not on stage. I was just screaming in the fans. Yeah. And the best part is that reaction is to an act. They showed it on TV to an act I didn't even see. So if you ever go back and watch, 8 seasons ago and you see me on TV, I didn't even see the act, the aerial act that was up there, but I was still on TV. I still feel so special and cool. We all have these moments in our lives, maybe where we have this little moment of fame. Of this claim to fame, maybe where we're that thing is so incredible. But what I actually have realized in my life is that none of those moments actually changed me. None of those moments actually had a significant impact on my life. They're fun stories to tell, but they didn't actually do anything for me or in me to make me a better person, to help me in my journey of life. They're just little moments. And actually, that as we glorify the famous in our society, we sometimes, because we want this connection to what we're known, but if we're honest, it's actually the people who make consistent, caring investment in our lives that matter the most to us. They're the ones who show up for us day in and day out. And I think it's a little bit ironic, but I'm gonna quote one of my teachers today, and he would say to us all the time when I was in school, he said, life-changing relationships life change happens through intentional relationship with God and others. Life change happens through intentional relationship with God and others. And that it is actually in the on-purpose relationships in our lives of people investing in us that change our lives for the better and forever. And we're today gonna kind of talk about a couple different groups of people. We're gonna honor some teachers. We're gonna then take a little bit of moment to honor the grads, and then we're gonna kind of bring it back together. And so I think hopefully you'll all get something by the end that means something to your heart, to your soul, as we get to honor these different groups today. See, at our church, we believe that kids and students' lives matter, that we take seriously the relationship that we have with students. And I know that for many of you that we've felt that responsibility, either as parents or mentors or teachers, to invest in the lives of students, to help lead them in the right way. And that weight also often doesn't come with very much respect and honor. It comes with the weight and no appreciation. And so today we're gonna celebrate the work that you have done in the lives of those around you, teachers and your students, parents and your kids, and even in those people and friendships that you've invested time and effort and relational energy into. We're gonna start today in the Word in the book of Job, but I'm gonna pray for us as we dive into the Word of God. Would you pray with me? God, we just ask that you would help us to see and discover and know who you are today, to see your glory and your power, to know the ways that you've led us, that you've empowered us, and that you appreciate the work that we've done. In your name, amen. So you might go, Matt, Job, that's a weird one to honor teachers with, right? But I have a reason. I have a reason here, because I think we'll see a little bit of ourselves in this. Job 36:22, it says, God is exalted in his power. Who is a teacher like him? And it's just this one little verse in the midst of this passage in which Job has just finished complaining and telling God all of the different ways that he is wrong, right? Teachers, have you been there and had somebody look at you and tell you you're wrong? You did that wrong, right? So Job has just been in this process of complaining and telling God all of the things that it's supposed to be. And this guy named Elihu comes to Job and he's like, hey, slow down, slow your roll a little bit. Let me tell you about the greatest teacher. That we have a God who is exalted in power, that there is nobody like him, that there is a great and amazing teacher. And it reminds us, and it reminds me as we start today that we have a great teacher in our lives who is the greatest of all, who is more powerful than all. And if he is called a teacher, then we should even more desire to be like him, that we should honor and respect and honor the power of those teachers. And I love this because as we think about all the students at this end of the year who are not quite getting the grades that they want and are asking for extra credit for all the assignments they didn't turn in, or maybe they're just ready to be done and they're screaming and going around like crazy, to remember that we get to be like God. We get to bless and encourage and be a teacher, but also that Jesus, the greatest teacher, has some words of wisdom for us. And this is what I hope that you will hear from God today. Luke chapter 6, verse 38 to 40. In the words of Jesus, he says, give and it will be given to you. A good measure pressed down, shaken together and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. He also told them this parable. Can the blind lead the blind? Will they both fall into a pit? The student is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like their teacher. So teachers, thank you for leading us, for helping us to not run into a pit. And yet this is also a call for all of us, an invitation for us to give, to invest in someone, to come back to our purpose and remember the blessing of not just receiving what others have given to us, but to give to others. See, life is this learning process that we are all going through, that we invest in and we get invested in. There's nothing that we can do without the investment in our own hearts, in our own lives, that others have poured out into us, that our God has poured out to us. And the greatest blessing, I think, as a teacher, or as somebody who has worked with students, is to watch them go and to watch your impact multiply through those grads or those students who have taken the investment, taken the words that you have said. And I hope that my professor, Steve, who said that life change happens in intentional relationships with God and others is gonna be blessed today by the work that he's had in my life and that I get to continue to have in the lives of students. And what better way to celebrate the work that teachers have done than to celebrate the grads who have gone through it with them, who are ready to phone it in now and graduate next week or whenever. Maybe they just graduated a couple weeks ago. But we're gonna shift to the grads, and I think this is the funniest part of celebrating grads is like I've graduated a couple of times in my day, and I remember like when I was graduating with my master's. And thinking that like I never wanted to read a single book again. Like I was so burnt out with like the reading and the writing and everything else. And I knew that if I was ever in an environment where I was a teacher, I would not give my students the kind of work that I had to go through, right? Like I was like, I'm gonna be the fun teacher. I'm gonna be the teacher they love to hang out with, who's not giving them all this hard work. And I remember this phrase that my mom taught me, and I don't know why my mom taught me this phrase, from the last day of school where she said, no more teachers, no more papers, no more books, no more teachers, dirty looks. And I'm like, yeah, I was so ready to be done with that. And then I remember the first time I was like working in youth ministry with some kids, and I said something to them and I shut them down, and they're like, that was such a good dad voice. That was so scary. And I didn't have kids yet. Like they like just stopped in their track, and I was like, oh, I learned that from my teacher. I learned that like, no, this is what we're doing voice from my teachers. And I start to remember and realize how much the voice of our teachers, of our mentors, has poured into me. So grads, I hope that you know that you're not alone in your journey. That this is what I believe God's heart for you is. From Psalm 121, I believe that God is looking over you and he says, the Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. I was out in a soccer field this week as my daughter was trying out for soccer, and I got out there and I didn't have any shade. And it was like 92 degrees, and I was out there going like, it is exhausting out here. Like I'm not even doing anything. I'm just sitting here under the beating sun. And I was like, I'm getting on Amazon right now and I'm ordering myself an umbrella because I'm not gonna find myself next to a field ever again without some shade. And grads, I hope what you'll discover, what you'll learn, what you'll understand is that we have a God who wants to be that shade and protection for you. As your teachers have to allow you to move on to the next stage of life, as your parents have to admit that you're grown-ups now, even though they want to control your lives just a little bit more, I hope that you will know that God desires to protect you, to watch over you, that he is the shade for you. And that my hope is that what you'll actually do is you'll go back to verse 1 of Psalm 121 and you'll see that it says, I lift my eyes up to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. See, we're a product of all the people who've invested in us and all of their work and all of God's work in us. And here's what you have in common with teachers and grads, is that we're always learning. We always have something to do or to teach or to invest in the work. I spent a few years coaching in different sports and doing some different challenges, and I think one of my favorite things about coaching has been that there's always more both for the coach to learn and for the player to learn. And they can see it. They can see the ways that they can get better, and there's tangible ways. And in life, sometimes we get into our thing and we're like, I'm a professional, I'm a this thing, and I should be seen this way, or I should be done, I should be respected in this way. And that's gonna be true, but always we're learning. I had a boss a few years ago tell me, like, he like, we went to this seminar together, and he's like, hey, what's it like when you walk into that seminar and like they're saying things you already know and you're like the smartest person in the room? And I was like, I don't feel that way. Like, I don't feel like I'm ever the smartest person in the room. I feel like maybe even I'm faking it until I make it, but that what I've actually learned along the way is that there's this invitation in my life to actually be somebody who is constantly willing to learn, to admit when I mess up, and to take a step forward and learn in a new way. And so for all of us, there's this message from Ecclesiastes that I want us to hear this morning, and it says, what do workers gain from all of their hard work? I've observed the task that God has given human beings. God has made everything fitting in its time, but has also placed eternity in their hearts without enabling them to discover what God has done from beginning to end. I know that there is nothing better for them but to enjoy themselves and do what's good while they live. Moreover, this is the gift of God, that all people should eat, drink, and enjoy the results of their hard work. And I know that whatever God does will last forever. See, you work on behalf and in honor of God, who's the greatest teacher. You work in your life and in your relationships on behalf of and in honor of those who've gone before you. And your work isn't supposed to just end. Your investment doesn't just end when you have it all figured out. The invitation of God, our greatest teacher, is to share and mentor and care for others. So would you stay faithful in that journey? Would you lead when it's hard? Would you let your life shine in your workplace, in your college, in your school? Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, do it from the heart as for the Lord and not for others. And that reminds me of this kind of analogy of a plant, of a potted plant that you nurture and you hope will grow. And when you get a plant, you actually have there's more work that goes into it than you would think. I went out a few years ago, and my father-in-law lives out in Utah in the middle of these alfalfa fields. And I was watching the process of these alfalfa fields grow, and I was like, man, I've never been from a farming community or from anything like that, and I'm looking at it, and I started to go like, what is it that makes that happen? And I actually discovered that for alfalfa to grow, there's like a 2-year process of preparing the soil, just the soil, getting the right nutrients into the ground, just so that you can plant the thing that you can watch grow after you water it a ton, so that you can harvest it, so that you can make sure that you replenish the soil and bring it back again. And I wonder if in our lives and in our journeys that we get to see such a small part of the growth in the lives of people around us. And maybe you're like, this kid, teachers, is the worst, the hardest, the most obnoxious, the kid who always talks, always gets sent to the principal's office, always is punching the other kids in second grade, and is always in trouble. And you were the kind of teacher who got to just dig in the dirt and say, I'm gonna keep digging and trying to plant good and amazing things in that kid. And then they turn into me, the kid who spent all the time in the principal's office, getting in trouble in elementary school, talking in class, as somebody who gets the opportunity to speak life into others who have gone through those challenges. Maybe you're the person who you're like, man, just in passing, you're like, I'm just gonna bless this person. I'm just adding a little bit of water today. And you never know what that little bit of water in their life, that little bit of blessing in their life is going to bear as fruit in their lives. And I just wonder if we were the kind of people who said, and we looked around and we said, it is good to be a part of the journey, both with good and challenging people in our lives, to just be a little bit of a blessing, to see what fruit God can do and build and bring in the lives of others. And maybe, that could involve the pruning of how you help somebody along the way. I had a student, his name was Noah, and he was amazing in 5th grade. He had like this whole posse of friends that he would run around with, that he made feel welcome at church. And I loved Noah because his hope and his heart was in it. But at the same time, Noah also had the mentality of this space was his space and he was the king of everything. And he wasn't afraid to tell everybody that his dad was the boss. And so I sat down with him as he was coming into 6th grade and I said, Noah, I love you. I love your investment and your friends and the way that you invite others. But when you come into 6th grade, you are no longer in charge. You get the opportunity to be the person who makes a difference in the lives of others because you're comfortable, you're known, you're empowered. It's actually God who's in charge, and you get to be a part of what he's gonna do. 8 years later, I sat down and had coffee with Noah, and he's like, I really appreciated that conversation in 6th grade. And I was like, you're graduating now. Why did you appreciate that thing? He's like, I learned my role. I learned that not everything is about me. Not everything is about all of the things that I did, but actually it was that I got to be a part of what God was doing. I got to be invested deeply in the things that God was doing. I got to be the person who didn't make it all about me and was able to help everybody else be connected and be known. He's like, my sister didn't get that lesson. I wish somebody had been able to tell her the same thing that you told me. And I just hope that you will know that even in those small moments, even in that one conversation I had with that one student, that life change happens through intentional relationships with God and others. That hopefully, church, you will find yourselves in a place where you get to transform somebody's life through a meaningful relationship with them. That you get to look into their eyes and speak life and hope, that you get to water them or prune them and kindly lead them. But I also hope that you'll know that we have a God who's the greatest teacher of all, who invites us to celebrate the good work in our lives and in our hearts, that he desires for us to know and to be known, and for us to experience the fullness of his love and his invitation to experience life to the full. So teachers and grads, I celebrate you. I celebrate you because at this point in your life, you exemplify those pictures of what God invites us to. And we could all learn from you continuously. And we also hope that we can be a place that celebrates the work that God has done in and through you, and that God is gonna continue to do through your faithfulness and his faithfulness in your life. Would you pray with me? God, we just ask this morning that we would know the impact, that we would remember those teachers and those people who have poured into us. God, that we would see ourselves in the coming months and weeks and days with an opportunity to invest and to pour into somebody else. God, for whatever part of the journey that plays, to fill them with your love and your hope and your joy. God, would you lead them? Would you lead the teachers here as they finish out their school year to just have that little bit of extra grace that they need, that little bit of extra hope and energy to get through the year. God, would you walk with the grads as they seek you in this new journey of life? God, would you bring people alongside them to mentor them and lead them, to continue to point them towards you, and would you help them in their discovery of all the things you have for them. Lord, we thank you. We praise your